working with emotion. And I actually had to walk out of the room. So it was just too much for me to handle.
So do you blame Dr. Murray for your brother's death?
Yes, I do. He is the one that was administering the drug, as from what I do know. So.
One person I believe in Hollywood who people conspired to actually take down because he had too much power, and I believe that person was Michael Jackson. The reason I believe that is because you can look into the story. Paul McCartney and Michael used to be real cool. Paul was telling Michael, like, yo, you got to get your business together. You got to get your business right. Michael ended up getting so big that he bought the Beatles publishing. The Beatles publishing was worth so much that literally Sony gave Michael Jackson half of their publishing company just to own the Beatles catalog. Imagine how powerful a black man is when he owns a majority of the music industry's publishing. In some cases, was even giving publishing back to some of the artists. He gave Little Richard his publishing back. I don't know how many people he did that to, but he gave Little Richard his publishing back. I believe that Michael Jackson had too much power in the music industry, had too much control over the most valuable asset in music, which is people's publishing, and I believe they had to take him out because of it.
Janet Jackson just lit the industry on fire with a bombshell nobody saw coming. She's not just spilling tea, she's pointing her finger straight at Jay-Z, claiming he wasn't only competing with her brother Michael, but allegedly plotting against him. Janet's saying this wasn't no small-time rivalry. She's hinting Jay was moving chess pieces behind the scenes to block Michael at every turn. That's not competition, that's sabotage. Now fans are losing their minds, saying maybe this explains all those shady backroom deals, the weird power shifts, and why Michael suddenly found himself isolated right when he was supposed to be untouchable at the top of his career. The whispers have turned into a full-blown storm, and the timing of Janet's confession makes it even more explosive. Because let's be real, if she's right, this could be the crack that finally ends Jay-Z's so-called reign in Hollywood. And Janet didn't just drop hints, she went all in, making it clear she never bought the official story about Michael's passing. She's saying the media wasn't the only enemy targeting her brother. According to her, the chain of events leading up to his death was messy, full of contradictions, shady connections, and suspicious moves pointing to something much bigger. And right in the middle of it all, Jay-Z and his longtime partner in crime, Diddy? Yeah, Diddy's name just keeps popping up everywhere, and Janet's not ignoring it. Let's rewind. Michael Jackson tragically died on June 25, 2009 after overdosing on propofol, may he rest in peace. That drug was illegally administered by his personal doctor, Conrad Murray, but here's where it gets straight up bizarre. When Michael collapsed, Murray didn't call 911 right away. Reports claim he picked up the phone and called a man named Vahe Muhammad. And guess what? Vahe wasn't a doctor. He wasn't even in the medical field. He was Diddy's bodyguard. Now, this is where it gets creepy because for years, insiders whispered that Vahe wasn't just muscle. He was the cleanup guy you called when something needed to disappear in the industry. And if that's true, then what was he doing being the first call when the king of pop was fighting for his life? The fact that Michael's doctor allegedly called Diddy's bodyguard before dialing an ambulance has fans shook, asking what really happened in those final moments. But the bigger question is, why would Jay-Z and Diddy even want Michael Jackson out of the way?
No, you always hear the conspiracy theories, like, they be like, oh, Bill Cosby was trying to buy NBC.
Yeah.
Michael's the only person I believe they really tried to railroad like that because of what he did with the publishing in the music industry.
He talked about it all the time. He talked about it all the time. One thing I will say is that in the studio, he would always talk about how he lived in a certain fear. And I used to always try to reel him in a direction like, yo, you only supposed to fear God. Man shouldn't have you feeling like that. No man should have you living in that space. But he lived in that space a lot because he felt like he had something that was so valuable, which he did. He had something so valuable that people wanted.
He owned like half of Sony ATV's publishing, right?
Yeah, I think what people have confused, I'm glad you said that way, because I think people have confused the narrative. People for so long have said, Michael owned the Beatles catalog.
I heard that.
No, Michael owned Sony ATV.
That's right.
Which is Babyface, Mariah, the Beatles.
Beyonce.
Probably some of my catalog was in there.
According to Janet, it all boiled down to two things: money and power. See, at that point, Michael wasn't just the king of pop, he was the king of Hollywood. Nobody could touch him. Prince, the Purple One himself, came close, but Jay-Z? He wasn't even playing in the same league. And here's what most people forget. Michael wasn't only an artist, he was a businessman, a serious one, sitting on assets that shook the entire music industry to its core. We're talking about the Sony/ATV publishing catalog, worth around $250 million back then, and Michael was the biggest sole owner. That catalog wasn't just money in the bank, it was pure leverage. It gave him control and power over the industry's biggest names, and that terrified people. Producer Rodney Jerkins, also known as Darkchild, once admitted Michael confided in him about living in constant fear because of it.
Want it back.
You think they threw all those cases at Michael because they wanted it back?
I think it could have had something to do with it. I'm not going to say exactly that, but it could have had something to do with it. But I believe none of it because I was around Mike all the time and I knew the kind of person he was. So I'm like, they really trying to kill his character.
Yeah, I don't believe
And
it.
he would say it, like, he'd be like, they just can't stand that I'm the greatest. He would literally say that.
Michael knew everybody around him wanted what he had. And here's the crazy part. His so-called paranoia wasn't paranoia at all. It was cold, hard reality. Janet says that Catalog made him a prime target, and when Darkchild got pressed about whether the endless accusations against Michael were connected to his power in the industry, he didn't back down. He hinted that's exactly what was happening. According to him, those scandals weren't random, they were part of a bigger plan. And get this, he said the media's obsession with painting Michael as a monster didn't come out of nowhere. It came from the higher-ups pulling strings. Darkchild made it clear none of it added up. He called it crazy that Michael was even accused in the first place, and he said it with conviction. He never believed any of it. Why did Darkchild defend Michael so hard? Simple, he was with him constantly. He saw the real man behind the spotlight, the way he lived, the people he kept around, and the truth in the man in the mirror. From his perspective, those accusations against Michael didn't look like facts at all, they looked like weapons. Darkchild spent years standing up for Michael, and it wasn't just blind loyalty. He was surrounded by people who knew and trusted Michael, people who believed in his innocence. That's why he held his ground, even when it meant standing alone against a tidal wave of media attacks. But here's where things start to twist. Around that time, Michael was trying to keep his spirits high, planning huge shows like Summer Jam. Insiders say his whole vibe shifted after he teamed up with Jay-Z for Summer Jam in 2001. And listen, that collab wasn't just another performance, it was the start of something way darker. Allegedly, this was Jay-Z's moment to weave himself deeper into Michael's world. Some even claim Jay-Z's ties to Michael went back way earlier, like 1993, when he allegedly slipped into MJ's circle with help from LaToya Jackson's ex-husband, Jack Gordon.
They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
Now let me say this.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
And once that door cracked open, Michael's inner circle was never the same. That's when things got wild. Out of nowhere, LaToya suddenly claimed Michael had written checks to families of young boys. That one statement sent shockwaves through the industry, fueling the allegations that nearly destroyed him. Later, LaToya retracted it all, saying she had been manipulated and controlled by her ex, Jack Gordon. But insiders say this wasn't just messy family drama, it was bigger than that. The word is the entire setup was orchestrated from the shadows by Jay-Z and Diddy. They had the reach, the influence, and the motive to flip Michael's life upside down, and the timing of LaToya's words, too perfect to be a coincidence. Remember when Jaguar Wright came out years later and said Diddy might be bad, but Jay-Z is even worse? Yeah, people are starting to connect those dots. At this point, it might not even sound like rumors anymore. It feels like a straight-up pattern. Think about it. The two biggest solo stars in the world, Prince and Michael Jackson, were constantly dodging allegations like curveballs, while Jay-Z and Diddy somehow skated clean every single time. Instead of being dragged through the mud, they were celebrated as moguls, uplifting their fellow black men. Doesn't that sound just a little too neat? And that's why Jaguar Wright's words hit so hard. She didn't just say Diddy was bad, she flat out warned that Jay-Z was worse. And the more you look back, the less that sounds like gossip and the more it looks like a flashing red warning sign. Because while Prince and MJ were being battered by scandals, Jay and Diddy stayed untouchable, almost like the deck was stacked on purpose. Insiders whisper that the biggest threats to the industry weren't falling by accident, they were being taken out strategically while the orchestrators smiled clean in their suits. Here's where it gets real messy. Michael himself went public against Tommy Mottola, the CEO of Sony Records at the time. He accused Mottola of being racist, of using intimidation, and of running conspiracies against him and other black artists just to keep control. Michael even called him out as corrupt, saying he was exploiting black talent for profit. That's heavy.
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent, owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing and I'm leaving them and they're very angry at me because of it. But I just did good business, you know. So.
And here's the eerie part. Doesn't that sound way too familiar? The way Jay-Z hyped Jaguar right up only to drop her the second she spoke out? Or how Diddy was accused of planting rumors about Biggie and other artists when they tried to break free? The pattern is chilling. It's always the same cycle, just different names. Not long after, Michael revealed Sony was furious with him for wanting out, even though he owned 50% of Sony's publishing catalog. That kind of power made him dangerous. They wanted him to bend to their rules, to shut up and play along, but he refused. And according to insiders, that's when Jay-Z and Diddy allegedly tightened their grip, moving in the shadows to isolate Michael and control the narrative around him. So I'm leaving Sony, a free agent. Those were Michael's words, but behind the scenes, insiders claimed there was way more going on. Allegedly, Jay-Z himself played a role in the conspiracy against Michael, and not out of nowhere either. Word is, he was promised something massive in return, and trust me, what comes next is straight up dark. Remember Jack Gordon? Yeah, LaToya Jackson's ex-husband. According to Janet, Gordon wasn't just toxic, he was calculated. He allegedly forced his way into LaToya's life through marriage, using her as a direct line to Michael. Janet says her sister was brainwashed, manipulated into believing her own family wanted to kidnap her. That's some next-level control. But Gordon didn't stop there. Reports say he even arranged a press conference where LaToya stood in front of cameras and claimed she had proof of Michael's so-called inappropriate activities.
History, where were you when you heard?
I was at home in New York. I was at my house in New York. You know, another day, another morning. And I get a call. Headed to the hospital.
And you headed to the airport?
Not at that very moment. I didn't know the severity of it. No one knew. I can't remember exactly who I wound up calling back to see how things were going, and that's when they told me he had passed.
He had passed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And under Gordon's orders, she demanded $500,000 from the highest bidder. Imagine that, selling out your own brother under duress. The level of manipulation is sickening if true, and insiders say this wasn't just Gordon going rogue, it was part of a much bigger network working to tear Michael down. Eventually, the truth started trickling out. LaToya had no evidence. She later confessed she'd been forced into it, controlled by Gordon every step of the way. After finally breaking free and divorcing him, she revealed the full horror of his abuse, saying he isolated her, beat her with household items, and dictated her every move. Her voice was never really hers during that era. And here's the kicker. All those rumors weren't random tabloids gone wild. They were allegedly part of a cold, calculated plot to destroy Michael Jackson's reputation and strip him of his assets.
Working with emotion, and I actually had to walk out of the room. So it was just too much for me to handle.
So, do you blame Dr. Murray for your brother's death?
Yes, I do. He is the one that was administering the drug, as from what I do know.
And according to insiders, the masterminds pulling strings in the shadows, none other than Jay-Z and his ally Diddy. Now here's where it gets eerie. These stories are resurfacing right as Diddy's facing his own downfall, with arrests, lawsuits, and accusations stacking higher by the day. Each bombshell that drops drags more hidden truths to the surface, and fans can't help but start connecting the dots. The deeper it goes, the more it looks like we'll never fully uncover the extent of Diddy's alleged treachery, or how far this conspiracy really went. Remember Fahim Muhammad, Diddy's bodyguard? The same man Conrad Murray allegedly called when Michael Jackson's pulse was fading? Yeah, well, turns out there may have been way more to him than just security. During that era, when Diddy was sliding past almost every consequence, insiders say Fahim was the cleanup man in the background, playing the same role Gene Deal later admitted to. In fact, in the lawsuit filed by Lil Rod against Diddy, Fahim's name popped up again and again. Allegedly, he was a key piece in making sure Diddy avoided legal fallout. Every detail lines up like a puzzle, pointing to a whole network of people working behind the scenes, shielding some of the industry's most powerful names, while letting others, like Michael, get picked apart. And here's the chilling detail most people missed. Fahim only started working as Michael's head of security about 10 months before his death. Before that, he wasn't even in Michael's orbit. No history, no real ties. It's like he just appeared out of nowhere, planted almost without Michael even realizing who was really watching him. Janet says this explains why she didn't see her brother much in those final weeks. It wasn't her choice. She simply wasn't allowed. Michael was grinding nonstop until 2009, but when his last moments came, his family wasn't by his side. The only people around him were Conrad Murray and Fahim Muhammad. And that right there is the red flag. When you connect the dots, it looks like Michael's inner circle was carefully controlled. Family locked out, outsiders locked in. And the last people to see him alive? One was a doctor later convicted of involuntary manslaughter, and the other was a man tied directly to Diddy and Jay-Z's alleged empire. Coincidence? Or a setup crafted to perfection? It's becoming clearer and clearer. Whoever wanted Michael gone made sure he was isolated, cut off from the very people who loved him most. Janet revealed the last time she saw her brother alive was just 2 days before her birthday, about a month before he passed. And when the call finally came that he'd been rushed to the hospital, she was stuck at home, helpless, unable to be there in his final moments. That pain still haunts her. The deeper you look, the more every move around Michael feels like it was orchestrated to keep him alone when it mattered most. And one detail that still makes fans furious? His family wasn't even told how serious things were. By the time they got the truth, Michael was already gone. No warnings, no chance to say goodbye, just silence, then tragedy. That lack of communication, the isolation, and the timing, it all screams like someone else was controlling the narrative in those last hours. And Janet didn't stop there. She dropped another chilling revelation. Those same outsiders who forced their way into Michael's inner circle allegedly made him dependent on pills. Every time his family tried to step in, Conrad Murray shut them down, insisting he had it under control. He told Michael he didn't need anybody else's input, and Michael, too trusting, believed him. Janet said Michael knew his family was coming from love, but he felt trapped, powerless to fight back. Just like LaToya had once been manipulated by Jack Gordon, Michael himself was being psychologically cornered. Conrad Murray kept insisting nothing was wrong, and slowly Michael started living in denial, blind to how dangerous things had really become. By the time he realized the truth, it was too late. The manipulation, the pills, the forced isolation, it was all part of a bigger trap.
You believe it may have been murder. Do you still think that?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why are you so sure?
I would never, ever think differently. Because first of all, Michael told me that they were going to murder him. He was afraid. He was afraid for his life. Who was going to murder him? The people that were involved in his life, the people that were controlling him. This book, Starting Over, is about my life, and it's about Michael's life. It's the parallel between the two of our lives. We share that same life where people come into your life, wiggle their way in, control you, manipulate, control your funds, your finances, everything that you have, and you must do what they tell you to do. And that's what Michael was going through. And he knew that everything that was happening to him was not kosher, it wasn't right, and it disturbed him greatly. And he kept saying it over and over and over again. Yes, Dr. Murray was the fall guy, but it's more to it than just that. He named names. He told me people. He told me to be careful of this one and that one. And in the beginning, I didn't, it's not that I didn't believe him.
Who were the people that he was saying?
People that surrounded themselves around him, people that worked with him. People that were with him the last days.
Any specific names?
Michael wasn't capable of doing these shows that he was supposed to do. Michael only agreed to do 10, and it's because they had him on such a tight...
And while Janet openly placed blame on Conrad Murray for her brother's death, she also hinted the doctor wasn't acting alone. There was something much bigger, something darker, pulling the strings from the shadows. The people controlling Michael didn't just manage his career, they managed him. Janet says they dictated even his public appearances, which may explain why his looks seemed to change so drastically every time fans saw him. Some even believe these were humiliation rituals forced on him once he no longer had the power to speak up for himself. By then, Michael was trapped, hooked on pills, cut off from his family, and stripped of control over his own fortune. Janet laid heavy blame on Conrad Murray, but LaToya took it further. When asked if she thought Murray was responsible for Michael's death, she didn't hold back. She said he was just the fall guy. According to her, he was part of a much larger plot designed to take Michael down. That flips the story from tragedy into straight-up conspiracy. Michael had warned his sisters repeatedly that he was being followed, that people were plotting against him. And given his insane level of fame, fans brushing up against him everywhere he went, it wasn't unusual for him to feel watched. But the urgency in his warnings? That suggests it wasn't just paranoia, there were real forces closing in. We're talking about a man so famous he couldn't even go grocery shopping without the store turning into a full-on riot. Michael literally had to stage fake shopping trips just to feel normal. So being followed wasn't new, but imagine living under constant surveillance and still telling your family, they're tracking me. That's not normal celebrity stress, that's terror. And no matter which angle you look at, it all circles back to the catalog.
2003, a Florida supermarket closed so that Michael Jackson could fulfill his dream of going grocery shopping like everybody else, like a normal person. The other people in the store were friends, family of his who pretended to be shoppers. He did this because he wanted to experience what it felt like by putting things in a basket and what the real world is like. In this photo, you can see Michael Jackson appeared to be having the time of his life as he browsed the aisles.
To see, in my way, kind of what the real world is like, even though it wasn't the real thing.
Michael confessed to LaToya that he had a twisted love-hate relationship with it. He knew it gave him power, but that power also put a target on his back. And here's the kicker. Guess who stood to gain the most? Diddy's Bad Boy Records and Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records. Both just happened to rise in power around the same time those ugly rumors about Michael being a predator started spreading. Coincidence? Or a setup that was decades in the making? And if you thought all that sounded like coincidence, wait until you hear this bombshell. Remember when I told you Jay-Z was allegedly promised something big in return for spreading his influence and controlling the media? Well, take a closer look at how the timeline lines up. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009. Just 5 days later, 5 days, Jay-Z's Roc Nation suddenly announced a brand new distribution deal with Sony Records. Tell me that doesn't look suspicious. This is the exact type of pattern people say has haunted the music industry for decades. Black legends rise, then suddenly get torn down, while the power shifts to someone else almost overnight. And here's where it gets darker. LaToya revealed that after she was forced to lie about Michael, he confided in her. He told her straight up that people had infiltrated his circle and their intention was to end his life. LaToya still believes he was murdered, and she says Paris Jackson, Michael's daughter, believes it too. In her book, LaToya shared something heartbreaking. Paris told her the last time she saw her father alive, he cried a lot, shivering, constantly saying he was freezing and begging for warmth. That image alone is chilling. She also revealed the family was kept completely in the dark in those final days, phones cut off, access denied, and allegedly the ones responsible for shutting Michael out from his loved ones, none other than Conrad Murray and Fahim Muhammad. Fast forward to now, and Paris herself has spoken. She says she still hopes one day the truth comes out about who took her father from her so soon. And when you add it all up, Janet calling out industry power plays, LaToya exposing how she was manipulated, and Paris pointing to a cover-up, you start to realize this isn't just coincidence. It's a setup that still hasn't been fully unraveled. Looking at all the evidence, it's obvious something went horribly wrong in Michael's final days. Conrad Murray may have been convicted, but all signs point to him being nothing more than the fall guy. And if the latest wave of allegations against Diddy and the whispers about Jay-Z are anything to go by, the truth hasn't fully surfaced yet. It's still waiting to explode. So here it is, Janet Jackson pulling back the curtain on what could be the biggest conspiracy in music history. Jay-Z, Diddy, the media, and an entire hidden network allegedly working together to isolate Michael, control his life, and manipulate everyone around him until the king of pop was gone. Whether you believe it or not, the pieces line up in ways that make you stop and think. Michael Jackson may have left this world, but the questions about how and why are far from over. And if Janet, LaToya, and Paris are speaking now, you better believe more truths are on the way.